Awesome. All right. Thanks everyone for hanging in there while we resolved the last minute technical issue and got our sound back. Good afternoon, Chamber members. For those of you that I have not met yet, my name is Marissa Shera, and I'm the President and CEO here at the Greater Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to take a moment, as we do each week, to thank our executive partners whose logos you saw on the screen before we began our program today. These businesses are the backbone of the business community and a pillar of strength for the Fairbanks Chamber. Their support is not only financial. Often these businesses are providing the Chamber and our advocacy committees the knowledge and information needed to inform our advocacy process and the supportive policy that makes Fairbanks and our state the best environment possible to do business. A full list of our executive partners can be found on our website. Welcome everyone to the Fairbanks Chamber's Political Forum for candidates running for Alaska House seats 1 and 5. The Greater Fairbanks Chamber is a nonpartisan organization which advocates for the conditions that will allow businesses of all sizes to prosper in our region. We're focused on the betterment of all of our members by working with local, state, and federal government officials. The Chamber strives to represent our membership and address the multiple needs of our business community. Our goal for political forums is to help you in the audience understand your choices during this fall's election cycle. The candidates here today will appear on the ballot for the August 18th primary election. Please note that you have a choice this fall whether to vote in person or by mail using an absentee ballot. You may request an absentee ballot from the state of Alaska by visiting their website at elections.alaska.gov. The deadline is August 8th to apply for your primary election ballot, and that's just 4 days away from today. And on October 24th for the general election. Now I'd like to introduce you to today's moderator who has volunteered to lead today's discussion. Jennifer Thompson is a member of our board of directors and our government relations committee. She holds an associate degree in computer science from Charter College and continued education in public relations from Franklin University. Jen has spent the last 4 years as the Director of Marketing for Communications at Mac Federal Credit Union and most recently at Hedgecock Group Real Estate. Her work is focused on developing and implementing strategic and tactical marketing plans, the development, design, and execution of marketing and public relations campaigns through multiple media platforms, analyzing market trends and demographic data, and her favorite, cultivating business-to-business partnerships for various community sponsorship and events. Jen enjoys being the mother of 2 very active boys who are 10 and 12. When she's not chasing her boys or the summer sun, she gives her free time to the Midnight Sun swim team and proudly advocates for small business as a board member with the Greater Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. And with that, I'd like to welcome Jen.
Thank you, Marissa. I'd like to kick off the forum with a word of thanks to our candidates who have joined us today. Thank you for your willingness to serve in public office and for the work you will do on behalf of the residents and businesses in the Fairbanks area. We have limited time here today, so I encourage the audience to engage with the candidates outside of this forum to learn more about them, their philosophies, and their vision for the state of Alaska. Candidates, as I introduce you, please wave to the audience so they know who you are. The candidates for Alaska House District 1 are Bernie Colbert. There we go. For Borough Assembly Member Christopher Quist. The candidates for Alaska House District 5 are Karen Hughes and Representative Adam Wool. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the forum. I also want to extend the Chamber's sincere thanks to our Political Forum Series sponsors, Hedgecock Group Real Estate and Mac Federal Credit Union. These organizations support informed voting and engagement with important issues facing our state. Now let's do a quick review of our event format. The candidates will be asked a series of questions that are either short answers or yes or no. Each candidate will be given the same amount of time to answer each question. We have also reserved time at the end for audience questions. If any of our online audience have questions throughout this presentation, please type them into the chat box in the YouTube. Please direct your questions to all of the candidates rather than to one person. Chamber staff will review the questions and select a few to ask the candidates. I'd like to give just a few last-minute instructions before we begin with your opening statements. As I ask each question, I will give you a time limit. I will also indicate what order you will answer in. Candidates for House Seat 1 will always answer back-to-back, as well as candidates for House Seat 5. This will help the viewers to understand who is running for each seat. After each person has finished speaking, I will indicate the next candidate just in case we forget the order. I'd like to remind you that our official timekeeper will start the time on the screen when you begin speaking. Please stop when your time is up so that we can cover all of the questions. The timer will briefly flash red if you are in the middle of a sentence when the time expires. If you continue to speak, we will mute your line to keep the forum moving along. Does that make sense? All right, let's get started. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute introduction. To help you get to know the candidates, we ask them to cover 2 questions in their introduction. What motivated you to run for office, and what is one thing you will need to learn if you win the seat in November? We will start with Mr. Colbert as the first candidate alphabetically. Then we will continue with Assembly Member Quist, also running for House Seat 1. Next, we'll continue with Ms. Hughes, followed by Representative Wool, both running for House Seat 5. Does the order kind of make sense? Okay, Mr. Colbert, can you please start us off?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for inviting me here today to the forum. My name is Benny Colbert. I am a homegrown boy. I attended West Valley High School, also attended the University of Alaska, and I graduated from Arizona State University in Phoenix, Arizona. I believe what really motivated me to run was the fact that I love my community with all my heart. I have been serving on several different committees and boards, non-paid boards, and for the past 15 years or more. And I believe in the education of our students here in the community. I believe in having our the way it is. I believe in, sorry, I got a little nervous. I believe in stronger economy and having everyone, I missed the dart, and having everyone come back to stay with us here in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Next, Assembly Member Quist. Mr. Quist, I believe you're on. There you go.
Excuse me. Thank you. Christopher Quist here, running for House District 1. I was born and raised here in Fairbanks, where I've been an entrepreneur. I've served the community by working in public radio. And for the last 6 years, I've been on the Borough Assembly, where I'm currently presiding officer. I've had a lifelong passion for equity and justice, and I'm looking to go to Juneau to fight to restore the cuts to the university and to expand our investment in education. And I think that we can really make a lot of progress on important issues like energy and revitalizing our economy. One thing that I am learning more about is Title 18. And I care deeply about air quality and trying to figure out the best way to implement a clean air program here for Fairbanks. Thank you. And thank you to the Chamber for hosting us.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Thank you, Chamber, for hosting. My name is Taryn Hughes. I consider myself a lifelong Alaskan. I moved here in '81 when I was 6 weeks old with the military. Since then, have lived here for 33 of my 39 years. 10 of them spent in Tok, teaching in outlying villages and living there in that central hub of Tok. My background is in community development, organization, and activism. What motivated me to run were a lot of things, but for the sake of time, I'll list two. I think that the Interior Delegation deserves diversified representation in both gender expression and experience and in class. So I come from working class, and I think we need that in Juneau. What I hope to learn in Juneau is how to apply my skills of community development and activism into the role of political processes. I believe that they are two separate things. I want to be able to fuse them intelligibly and passionately for District 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wool?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this event. My name is Adam Wool. I've been representing District 5 now for the past 6 years. I grew up outside of Boston, came here in 1982, and I was in my early 20s. I attended UAF, got my degree in physics. At the same time, I opened a small business called Hot Licks Homemade Ice Cream. And over the past 30 years, I've run 3 small businesses. And up until about a year ago, I was a small business owner. So I understand the pains and trials and tribulations of running a business, especially during these difficult economic times. What motivated me to run 6 years ago was probably a little different than now, but I've been doing it for a while. And to be quite honest, it's a tough job, and it's a sacrifice to both my business and my family. So it's a different decision each time, but I feel that Alaska is in a very, very difficult decision right now, and they need people that have experience and stability and maturity that I have. And I feel that the experience I have is very useful to the Interior Delegation, to Fairbanks, and to the state of Alaska. And I hope to learn more, as I've been learning my entire time down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a series of questions based on the Fairbanks Chamber's advocacy agenda and the issues suggested by Chamber members. For the first question, you will have 30 seconds to respond. We will start with House Seat 1 again, Assembly Member Quist, then Mr. Colbert. Then that will be followed by House Seat 5, Representative Wool, and then Ms. Hughes. The coronavirus pandemic has negatively affected businesses throughout Alaska. We all hope that disruptions which started in March would be temporary and we would all be back to normal by now. Instead, new COVID-19 case counts are rising. Some states are reclosing businesses in an attempt to prevent hospitals from becoming overwhelmed. And the enhanced employment funding from federal government has just run out, potentially leading to a new wave of financial hardships for consumers. Since the lifting of most health mandates in May, the state's response has been to provide advice, but place the responsibility on individuals to choose and implement safety measures. What advice would you give to business owners trying to find the right balance between safety and economic concerns? Assemblymember Quist, 30 seconds are on the clock.
Thank you. It's an important issue and an important question. Obviously, individual businesses and business owners will be making up their own minds as what is appropriate to them. I guess if I was to give any advice just in a few seconds, I would say that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And the more seriously and more comprehensively we address this pandemic up front, the more quickly we can return to a normal and growing economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert?
Could you read the question again?
Yes. What advice
Were you able to hear me?
business? Ready?
Yes.
What advice would you give business owners trying to find the right balance between safety and economic concerns?
Okay, that's a very good question. Seeing that the COVID numbers have recently risen, I would give the advice of let's follow the doctors and the mandates that are being put forth, so that at least our community could drive down the numbers, and also have be an example for the other states whose numbers are going up, and then we need to work on the cases and things that we have in our own community.
Thank you. Representative Wool?
Thank you. I guess advice to businesses would be to proceed with caution, take care of their employees, take care of their customers. It's been shown that masks prevent the spread of COVID, and I think people should adhere to that. A lot of the spread is happening outside of businesses at public gatherings and various other events. So I think that advice should be spread beyond businesses. But as far as businesses, they should make sure their employees are safe and keep their customers safe, and make sure in public businesses people wear masks. I think it's simple.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Businesses are the pillars in our communities. They set the examples during COVID of how best to respond because they are so public and constantly in the public eye. I would advise business owners to remind customers that if they like coming to their businesses, protecting themselves and their neighbors by wearing masks and following the guidelines from the CDC are what's going to keep them from having to close down repetitively over the course of this pandemic that we really don't know a whole lot about at this point.
Thank you. As a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions you would like to have asked to the candidates, please submit them online in the chat box. For our next question, we will start with House Seat 5, Ms. Hughes, then Representative Wool. They will be followed by House Seat 1, Mr. Colbert, then Assembly Member Quist. You will have 60 seconds to respond. Alaskans have recently engaged in an intense debate over budget priorities at the state level. All levels, elected officials are being faced with difficult choices about services and revenues, which will have far-reaching impact for our community. Watching this debate over the last few years, the Fairbanks Chamber has advocated for a long-term fiscal plan which utilizes earnings from the permanent fund, makes government more efficient, encourages resource development and business-friendly practices, and includes passage of an appropriate and timely capital budget. How will you balance the ever-increasing cost of providing essential government services with the need to balance the state budget? Ms. Hughes, you have 60 seconds.
Pardon me, sorry. Oh, that started my time. So the long-term budget solutions are part of why I am running for this position, this seat in House District 5. I've done a lot of conversing with people in the district, and while I agree that pulling from the percent of market value for the PFD, the time has arrived, I do support a just transition in that process, a sliding scale PFD that allots the most income for the families that have the lowest household income and the highest amount of household members, because like it or not, we've developed a dependency on the permanent fund dividend, and we owe it to our lowest income populations to support a just transition in that. Otherwise, I support an income tax as opposed to a sales tax, and since I only have 13 seconds left, I'll just use the last few seconds to talk about why. Sales tax will impact villages and rural communities the most. Income tax is broad-based, and everybody will be putting into it, and I believe that that is the best solution for our budget in 30 seconds, or a minute.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Representative Wool.
Thank you. It's a really important question, and we could spend all day on this topic. But the budget, of which I've been working on off and on for 6 years now, and most recently on the Finance Committee, I've put a lot of thought into. What we've done to balance the budget for the past 6 years is pull it out of savings, and primarily the Constitutional Budget Reserve, otherwise known as the CBR. CBR has about $1.5 billion left, so it's almost depleted. We won't be able to balance the budget with the CBR. And as many of you know already, if we have a zero PFD next year, we'll already have a deficit of $300 million or more. So we do need new revenue, that's a fact. And where that comes from, taxes is certainly high on the list. I know some people are looking at oil taxes on the ballot initiative, saving the day, but those will not be enough. There's not nearly $1 billion as was promised early on. So we need, beyond any change in oil tax, we need new revenue, whether it's income tax, sales tax, and I have 1 second left, but we need to work hard on revenue.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert?
That's a very good question. Thank you. I said my answer to this is I would lead the way, by proposing bipartisan to work across in order to build collaborative that create financial models, for our communities. One of the things that, we will have to look at other income revenue initiatives. And so I'm going down there with the focus of reaching across the aisles and making things happen. Done. All right.
Thank you. Assemblymember Quist.
Thank you. So I think we can balance the ever-increasing cost of providing essential services and the need to have a balanced budget by having more revenue. We can't cut our way out of this anymore. I mean, the cuts have already been too deep, past fat, like we're cutting bone at this point. And we need to look at new revenue, like it's been said, a broad-based income tax, I think makes a lot of sense. Alaska's Fair Share Proposition 1 will be very significant. If it's not, the high estimate I've heard is, 1.1 billion annually. The lowest estimate I've heard is 700 million. That's really significant. I mean, so $700 million, that's more than Dunleavy's cuts right there. So I'm doing the damage of SB21, finding new revenue, and we're innovative, resourceful people, finding new energy and growing the economy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. House Seat 5 will start the next question. Representative Wool, then Ms. Hughes. They will be followed by House Seat 1, Assemblymember Quist, then Mr. Colbert. You will have 30 seconds to respond. To follow up on the budget question, where does the PFD fit into your priorities for state spending? How will you choose between the competing needs and desires of your constituents?
PFD has taken up a lot of bandwidth, too much actually. This year we passed a $1,000 PFD, which is $680 million cost to the state. A $500 PFD would be $340. We could fund the university with a $500 PFD. My priorities are more for the university than for a PFD. I realize a lot of low-income people need it, and there's many assistance programs that should actually be bolstered to help them. But to use the PFD as some sort of life support was not at all what it was intended for.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
So the PFD model is troublesome from the beginning. I reiterate, and I think that I kind of answered that with the first question that I was asked about it. These are real people that live in our districts. These are real situations, and there are people that I've spoken to on the phone from District 5. So again, whether we like it or not, the PFD has developed a dependence, and there are families who rely on it, and we have to support a just transition. With the Fair Share Act, we can support our university, and we can begin an income tax phase-in, but we cannot just eliminate the PFD altogether. Give people the option if that's what they want.
Thank you. Assemblymember Quist?
Thank you. As with any dividend, in order for an organization to be paying a dividend, it has to be profitable, it has to be generating excess. And that's not where we are right now. The PFD needs to be secondary, but I think that we can protect it, at least for those that need it most. And so I think that the long-term health of the fund and our economy is going to be more successful if we are able to pay a dividend, even if that is a reduced amount.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert? Mr. Colbert, I believe you're on mute. Mr. Colbert, I believe that you're still on mute.
I'm sorry, you guys. Just to restart what I was saying, the dividend has been a hot topic for quite some time, and it has affected Alaskans in my district, in many different ways. In my district, for example, people have come to depend on the PFD for food and fuel. So we must develop another revenue stream which does not propose significant economic risk to the state in order for the Alaskans not to ultimately be dependent on the dividend as a sole provider of revenue and essential goods and services.
Thank you. We will now move into the rapid fire round of yes or no questions. You should have your red and green cards in front of you. For our colorblind friends, the green card has a check mark to indicate yes, and the red card has an X to indicate no. If you don't have your cards, please indicate your answers using your thumbs up or your thumbs down. For each question, please hold up the cards that correspond to your answer and keep it up until all candidates have responded. First, we'll start with a warm-up question. During the coronavirus closure, did you do any of the following common lockdown activities? Bake bread, put together a puzzle, or cut your own hair? Okay, we are ready to start the rapid fire questions. The Fair Share Act, a ballot initiative, which will appear on the November 3rd general election ballot, will increase the state's tax rate on oil production and discourage future investments by oil companies in Alaska. Would you encourage someone listening today to vote for this initiative? Thank you. Next question. Would you support implementing a broad-based tax such as a state income or sales tax to pay for state services? Thank you. Do you support voting by mail in state elections? Thank you. If a military dependent arrived in Alaska with a professional license from another state, such as a nursing or architectural license, do you think the state of Alaska should expedite a temporary professional license while the person completes any Alaska-specific requirements? Thank you. Good job, guys. We have 2 more prepared questions for the candidates. Audience, this is your final reminder. If you have a question you would like to have asked, please submit it in the chat box now for the Chamber's consideration. Candidates, you will have 60 seconds to respond to the next question. We will start with House Seat 1, Mr. Colbert, then Assembly Member Quist. They will be followed by House Seat 5, Ms. Hughes, and then Representative Wool. The Fairbanks Chamber is composed of member organizations who rely heavily on the University of Alaska to educate and train qualified employees, perform research which makes us successful in challenging Arctic environment, and attract new talent into the interior. More than ever, our businesses need an educated workforce ready to develop creative solutions and get our economy moving after the threat of COVID-19 has passed. The skilled professionals who are developed locally are the people who stay, contribute to our community, and become the future leaders of our state. In addition, the University of Alaska Fairbanks is a major economic driver in our region. Because of its unique position at the edge of the Arctic, UAF is able to attract outside funding to support world-class research in Arctic studies, unmanned aircraft systems, natural phenomena such as aurora borealis, climate change, and national security. These federal and philanthropic dollars are as well as world-class researchers they attract will go to universities or organizations outside of Alaska if the respected research programs developed at UAF are dismantled or the campus infrastructure disintegrates around them. After the budget cuts imposed by the current administration, do you think the University of Alaska is being funded at a sustainable level to serve the needs of the businesses and future workforce of Alaska? Explain why or why not. Mr. Colbert, you have 60 seconds.
No, I as a product of our local university system, I do not support the current cuts or any future cuts to the university system. I believe that these cuts are detrimental to our community, jobs, education, and reputations for those those programs that you have just mentioned. You know, these cuts force our students to go outside of the state to receive their college education. And we need our fellow Alaskans to return back to our community to help build a stronger Alaskan economy. And for those reasons, I do not support these or any future cuts of the university system. And it will also, you know, affect the jobs up at the university. So I really believe that we need to keep our students from staying out and coming back and reinvesting themselves in the community.
Thank you. Assemblymember Quist.
Thank you. So after these budget cuts, the university system is completely not adequately funded to meet our needs, to develop a workforce, to retain talent here in the state, to attract new talent to the state, to lead on world-class research that brings in millions and millions of federal dollars to our community, and it really puts us on the map even globally. So we need to restore the cuts. We need to invest in education at the university and all levels. And we need to train our workforce, to educate future teachers, to educate the next generation of Alaskans. And there's also a non-economic component, which is, I mean, there are humanities at the university, and those are often first to get cut, but that's how we generate informed citizenry that can lead in the future. So absolutely not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
I admire the university's efforts to identify where their values are and where their funding can be better spent. I think they've done a phenomenal job addressing that issue since 2012 and 14. The last 2 years of budget cuts to the university are dismaying at the least. I am a graduate of UAF. My daughter actually just chose to attend Humboldt because she is so wary of the budget funding situation for the university. And if that trend continues in her age demographic, what's left? We need a robust university program for all of the reasons already mentioned by everyone here, but it's also a huge economic driver for our state. It's a Title IV school, so it brings in federal funding, and that's new money every single year. If we want to retain Alaskans for Alaska and bridge the gap between the aging population and the young population, we have to fund the university, and I don't support the cuts that are happening right now.
Thank you. This is our final prepared question. You will have 60 seconds to respond. We will start with House Seat 1, Assemblymember Quist, then Mr. Colbert, then will be followed by House Seat 5, Representative Wool, then Ms. Hughes.
Jennifer?
The state of Alaska is... Oh.
I couldn't hear you, but I'll answer the university question if that's okay. Yeah, I think anyone would be foolish to say they support cuts to the university, especially if you're from Fairbanks. Anyone who knows me knows that my whole career in Juneau has been spent a lot of time about university funding. University funding's been cut almost every year that I've been in Juneau, except for 1 year. Funding was increased, and it was partly due to an amendment I introduced on a finance subcommittee to add 25 million, which was later reduced to 10 million. That was the only increase the university's gotten in about 8 or 10 years. So I am a big supporter of the university. It's important to Fairbanks both economically and culturally, provides a workforce for our community, and keeps our students in state instead of going out of state, as was previously mentioned. The other thing that wasn't mentioned was when a professor leaves who's working on research, he takes that research grant with him, and he takes a lot of those grad students with him too. So we need to have a robust university that retains its faculty, retains its students, and keeps the state and the community alive.
You gotta love virtual moderating, right? Can you hear me? Thank you. Okay, our final prepared question. You will have 60 seconds to respond. We'll start with House Seat 1, Assembly Member Quist, and then Mr. Colbert. They'll be followed by House Seat 5, Representative Wool, and then Ms. Hughes. The state of Alaska is fortunate to have many natural resources, from timber to gold and gold to fisheries. Development of these resources have been a major driver of the Alaska's economy from the beginning. These industries also contribute a substantial portion of the state's budget. The Fairbanks Chamber supports the development of high-paying construction, production, and operation jobs resulting from resource development. Fairbanks companies are poised to manufacture critical supplies, transport equipment, provide skilled workers, and support new development. Of course, businesses must benefit both current and future Alaskans beyond providing good jobs. Our members continually and consistently demonstrate a commitment to working safely, attaining globally accepted sustainable goals, and making a positive, lasting contribution to society. What do you see as our state's government role in responsible resource development? First question goes to Assembly Member Quist. You have 60 seconds to respond.
Our state government in resource development at this point has to be looking longer term, not, as you said in the lead up to your question, more than just jobs right now, but ensuring that we can continue to responsibly develop resources and protect our environment in the future. So I think that means looking post-carbon. I think it means looking at regenerative resources. I think it means things. So our state is vast, geographically, geologically, and it's diverse in its energy and its resources. And I think that we need to be taking advantage of that diversity, thinking about things like solar in the parts of the state that works well, like tidal, like salmon. At the same time, doesn't mean that we can't mine. It doesn't mean that extractive technologies aren't part of this economy, but they'll continue to be a smaller portion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert? Mr. Colbert, I believe that you're still on mute.
Okay, I'm having technical difficulties as we all have had this morning, so excuse me. I believe it's critical to the Alaskan future to take advantage of energy resources that we have already in place. We must diversify our revenue streams and be cognizant of the decline of the oil prices as we transition to a more renewable energy economy. So my belief is we must continue more beyond our reliance on oil and coal and diversify more of our energy resources towards hydraulic, geothermal, solar-based energy resources. And Alaska must join the wave of the future and set an example for the other states as we move beyond the fossil fuel energy resources and embrace renewable alternatives in Juneau. I propose bipartisanship fiscal plan to amplify the renewable energy infrastructure of our state, and that's what I will do to meet our economic needs, and that's what I'll do down in Juneau.
Thank you. Representative Wool?
Thank you. Alaska is definitely a resource extraction state. It has been for a long time, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Fairbanks alone has 3 coal-fired power plants, and if you include Healy, that's 5. And one of them is brand new at the university. So I don't think mining is going to go away anytime soon. Oil extraction is our number one resource, revenue resource for the state, besides the permanent fund. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. I'd like to see more natural gas development and production. I think that's our next resource that we should work on. Mining has been very important, and I think those things will remain important. I think we should look at alternative energies, a non-carbon based energy, solar, wind, hydro, whatever it is. Those are all very important. We should work on those. Even modern nuclear, which could be clean and very useful for remote locations and be carbon zero. So I think we should look into all those things. And in fact, Alaska has some minerals that can be used in modern nuclear as well. So I think there's a good future there.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Yeah, I've actually had some great conversations recently about use of modern nuclear. I would agree with that. We are an extractive state. I think that in order to be able to invest in long-term renewable energies, we are going to need to continue to be an extractive resource state, and I support that. One of the things that I want to see more of coming from Alaska is production happening here and transportation systems that are more robust and can get our product to the market in the lower 48 faster. I think about Bristol Bay. You know, my job, we fly out to Bristol Bay all the time. Why can't we process those fish here? I know there are some federal regulations, but I'd like to look more into production, manufacturing, and transportation from our state. I think that brings money back to the state. I have 8 seconds left, so I will just smile and say thank you.
Thank you. We will now take one audience question. So candidates, you will have 60 seconds to respond to the first question. So let's see. How have you or will you support Indigenous people in your district? And we will start with Ms. Hughes.
So Indigenous people in Alaska has been something that I've been closely connected to my entire adult life. And this doesn't necessarily apply to my district, but I want to talk about it anyway because I can. We need robust VPSO programs that work closer in connection with our established state trooper program with the same amount of funding and the same amount of uniforms provisions, housing provisions that the state troopers have. Because the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is a huge problem in Alaska, and I think that's the first step to solving it.
Thank you. Next, Representative Wool.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And the solution is for various problems facing the Indigenous population. The solutions are very complex. VPSO is definitely an issue, and we need more of those in villages around Alaska. But the other question is, why do we need so many, and why are there so many social problems that are especially happening in rural Alaska? In our district, District 5, it's a little different than rural Alaska, but I think we need to provide education, jobs, and job training for everyone, including Indigenous Alaskans.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert? Mr. Colbert, we're still not able to hear you. Sorry, Mr. Colbert, we're still not able to hear you. Okay, we'll move on to Assemblymember Quist.
Thank you. So yeah, House District 1 is on the lands traditionally of the people of the lower Tanana Deny. And I would help Indigenous people in the district, well, first off, by listening and hearing what is important to them and what they think the future of our community should look like. And secondly, I would help them by helping everybody in our district, particularly folks that are most disadvantaged and that have been historically marginalized and disadvantaged.
Programs or members within the community. I believe that it's important.
Mr. Colbert, would you like to try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me now? No, I don't know what happened. Okay, sorry, I'm trying.
Mr. Colbert, if you'd like to type your answer into the chat box, I can read it for you. Okay, we're going to proceed on to today's conclusion of the forum and give each candidate 30 seconds to give closing remarks. We're going to start with Representative Wool, then Ms. Hughes, followed by Assembly Member Quist, and then Mr. Colbert.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. 30 seconds, closing remark. Well, I'm looking to go back to Juneau because I think the state is facing an unprecedented crisis, both health-wise and economic. And there's a lot of social issues that we have to deal with as well. But I think being on Finance Committee, it's really opened my eyes to the seriousness of our budget situation. Like I said earlier, we've spent all our savings, our oil revenue is down, our expenditures are going up, and we have a real situation. I don't want to break the SB 26 Sovereign Wealth Fund. I don't want to overdraw it over 5 or 5.25%. So we really have to make some tough decisions. And I think my experience and bridge building abilities will help in the future of Alaska.
Thank you. Ms. Hughes?
Thank you, Chamber, again, for featuring this forum. It's great to be here. It's great to interact with all of you. And thank you to everyone who has shown up to watch. I do think that there are times where experience is a necessary application, and that there are times where having a fresh perspective, a fresh face, and new ideas are important. I think that we have surpassed that point in Alaska, and I am asking for your vote because it's that time for District 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly Member Quist?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to fighting for justice, economic justice, educational justice, justice in all its forms for the District 1 and across the state. And I'm running because I believe that I'm the strongest candidate, not only to win in November, but also to be effective in January, to bring my years of experience to make lives better for everybody here in Fairbanks. Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this forum, especially now when there's so few opportunities with the pandemic and all.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert? No, I still can't hear you.
You got. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what's happening to the. It's I can do. Can you just read the question one more time? I'm sorry.
It's a journey to do this together, and it's our first virtual forum. So thank you all for your patience in this. So I'm going to ask Mr. Colbert that maybe you could post something online, and then our members can go ahead and find you online to help get the answers that we weren't able to hear from you today. Thank you again to all of our participating candidates for participating with us in this virtual forum. Thank you to our audience for informing yourselves about the coming election in this very unusual year. Our next forum will take place Tuesday, October 11th, featuring the candidates for Alaska State Seat B and Alaska House Seats 2 and 6. Please join us online next Tuesday at noon for that discussion. We encourage you to cast your vote in the Alaska primary election on Tuesday, August 18th. And don't forget, you can request your absentee ballot for the primary election online through this Saturday, August 8th. That's all we have. Thank you guys, and have a great day.